Thank you, Getter. Bum, 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 bum. Let's go, locals. Get it, Getter, get it. Yo, YouTube. Need to come up with something for Rumble, right? Kind of cliche. Let's rumble. Too cliche. All right, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. 33 days from Iowa. We have our little Iowa countdown clock and everything, which is going to be really cool. But we also have a special here, basically a special on Michigan, because for people who don't know, I get a lot of questions about how Michigan's primary and nominations go. And for a lot of people who don't know what's going on in Michigan, who elected a new chairwoman of the state on the Republican Party, we're going to talk to her that she is taking it from both sides. And then also she'll dive into the process itself, because we have our nomination map we put up the other day. We've been getting a slew of questions about how that works. But then there's also a question of what is happening in Michigan. CNN plus 10, we have plus 5 for Trump, the advantage. Epic MRA has Trump up by 5. These are leads we've just never seen before. So leave it to Republicans to try to snatch defeat from the hands of victory, and attack and cannibalize and eat their own when they are on the brink of doing something magical. That's basically what the Republican Party does. But it won't be a softie. We're going to figure out what on earth is going on over there, because at the end of the day, the voter of Michigan is what matters, right? The voters are what matter most. All right, so if you like the videos, don't forget to like them, share them far and wide. Of course, if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. Rumble doesn't have to do that. It'll just let you know. But the best place, of course, to follow us is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. Got some really cool ideas for the Christmas poll on Locals. Keep them coming. I haven't closed the book on it yet. We are up to about an 8-minute survey, though, which, as you know, scares me. I don't like that. I don't like long surveys. So we're going to have to just pick the best of the best here. I'm not willing to sacrifice some of the general election questions just yet. And I very much would like to try to get a generic ballot if, however, this is the Christmas poll. So if it gets a little bit too crazy, that may be what is on the chopping block, right? So we don't touch any of the 24 questions. Another poll out in Michigan, another poll out in Wisconsin. They also did the nomination contest, and guess what? They mirror big data polls, Rust Belt polls. So once again, we were a week, 2 weeks before some of these other polls showing very clear trajectories in the race. And remember, when you're looking at a state like Wisconsin and Iowa are supposed to be two of Trump's worst primary and or caucus states. All right. So the fact that, he's in the 50s in these states is not good. And I hate to say it, but PPP, not to be confused with PPD, which I don't, I've criticized quite a bit. I don't like them. I've seen them engage in some very questionable behavior. They are almost, again, identical. I mean, they have Trump exactly where we have him. So that's interesting. And thank you to people who, by the way, who are giving to the Public Polling Project. I just get buzzed when that happens. But not with everyone, but with one in particular. So thank you for that. And of course, share that far and wide as well. We're getting a much bigger contributor base, and we've been able to do a lot more polling because of that. All right, but before we move forward into Michigan, there are a few little stories I want to touch on, and then I want to read of what's going on in Michigan and run some clips before we have our guest on later in the show to discuss it. All right, This is first and foremost, though. Thanks, Seth, for pointing out what I have been. It's not that I'm concerned about it. I've been telling you to look out for this. And I've been telling you this is going to happen because this is novel to see a PAC operate like this, especially when it's so high profile in a presidential campaign. I did not think they were going to get away with it. And, if he loses, which it's obvious he's going to lose, that's when they come after you, So, had Andrew Gillum taken that donor money and done good with it and become the governor of Florida, the FBI probably would have continued their investigation and the Justice Department would not have indicted him. When you lose and you become worthless to people who spent millions and millions of dollars on you, they pick up the phone and they call their friends at the Justice Department. They call their friends at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They call their friends at the Federal Election Commission, and your butt is in trouble. That's sadly how our system works because we have a very flawed and very corrupt federal justice system in this country. It may look good, but that's about it. And you all know that. All right. But this is a demon of your own design. We've been warning about this now. God, I don't even know. Months? Yeah, months. Since the summer, when it became clear at the end of June to the campaign, as they're doing their filing, that they're broke. And they spent all of their normal campaign proceeds, and they're not going to be able to tap the donors that raised that money because they maxed out. When you go to big donors, your main problem is they give the max, and when you blow that money, you can't come back and say, give me another $5, give me another $50, give me another $250, give me $200, give me $100. You can't do it because they already gave you the max contribution. DeSantis's donors DeSantis's donor sheet is more big donor than Nikki Haley is. At least before all of them jumped ship from DeSantis's campaign and went to Nikki Haley's. Those numbers may change now. We'll have to just wait. By that time, I think it'll be pretty much irrelevant, but we'll just have to wait to see what happens when, the new financials are released. But in June, late June and July, when I told you guys that they didn't know they were broke, they didn't realize they were out of money until they had to do the filing. That tells you that's a very poorly run campaign, very poorly run operation. And they began to rely on never back down in a way that no presidential campaign has ever relied on them. There are rules, one of them that we brought up. There are rules about hosting events for a single candidate. If you are a PAC, you must have a certain percentage of events headlining other people. It became a point when they didn't really even have the money to fake those events that are headlined by other people. And from the very beginning as well, it was very, very clear, especially with the meeting in Utah and elsewhere, that these people were at the same events, talking about the same strategy, same function, same people. Hey, I don't like this. I express concern at that. So you can't talk to the PAC like this. You can't express concerns to the PAC that they're doing something that you don't like. Your wife can't get on the phone or talk through a third party. Hey, go tell so-and-so to course correct because I think these ads don't work. What happened to our ground game? I thought you were going to spend money on that. You can't do that. And everyone likes to mock Laura Loomer, but she has done work that has had an impact on this race. And when she did that report showing certain donors, I'm not going to bring up their names and embarrass them any further, but they know who I'm talking about. That couple knows who I'm talking about. You cannot go and hold an event or go to an event and then have a PAC person here, a campaign person there, and as a donor, sit them down together and express to them the way you think the governor wants you to move in, whatever strategy the governor wants. You can't do that. That's still illegal coordination. So here we are now with the campaign in deep trouble. It's been on life support for months. That's the reality. With the campaign in deep trouble, people are starting to point fingers, and people who work for various entities are starting to get concerned that they have legal exposure. DeSantis' campaign interactions with super PACs raise internal legal concerns, AP sources say. And you're going to see in a second that it's more than just internal concerns. The AP had these sources, then they went and spoke to experts, and the experts say, yup, that's against the law. Ron DeSantis has visited each of Iowa's 99 counties. He has the endorsement of the governor and boasts the largest get-out-the-vote operation in the state. And he has predicted victory in Iowa's January 15 caucuses. But as the Florida governor works to project strength in the Republican primary and cut into former President Donald Trump's huge lead, which hasn't happened. I mean, you could say he's worked to it. It has not happened. DeSantis' expansive political machine is facing a turn of leadership, stagnant polling numbers, and new concerns about potential legal conflicts. Specifically, there has been concern in recent weeks among some within DeSantis' operation that interactions between his campaign and his network of outside groups are blurring the lines of what's legally permissible. Multiple people familiar with DeSantis' political network said that he and his wife had expressed concerns about the messaging of Never Back Down, the largest super PAC supporting the governor's campaign, in recent months as his Iowa polling numbers stagnated in late summer and autumn. The governor and his wife, Casey, who is widely considered his top political advisor, were especially frustrated after the group took down a television ad last month that criticized leading Republican rival Nikki Haley for allowing a Chinese manufacturer into South Carolina when she was governor. Okay. You can't do that. You, as the candidate, cannot send your aides, your advisors, your messages, whatever, over to the PAC saying, hey, you made a mistake, put it back up. Secondly, Never Back Down did the right thing by removing that ad. We were polling when that ad was running. We heard a ton of people saying that it was already, they are so branded to Ron DeSantis that when people in Iowa and elsewhere see the ads for Never Back Down, they know it's Ron DeSantis. They basically think it's his campaign. And that ad was backfiring. Never Back Down knew it, and they took it down. Right, Laura, when we polled Iowa, how much did we hear backfiring about that ad from Never Back Down attacking Haley, right? They were like, can't they just tell us what the hell they're going to do instead of attacking everybody? All they have ever done is attack. It was backfiring. They did the right thing. But as the candidate or his wife, you can't tell Jeff Rowe or whoever is, whatever, it's a musical chairs over there. You can't tell them to course correct. DeSantis' team shared those messaging concerns with members of Never Back Down's board, which includes Florida-based members with close ties to the governor, according to multiple people briefed on the discussions. Some of the board members then relayed the DeSantis team's wishes to Super PAC staff, which was responsible for executing strategy. This is illegal coordination. That is textbook. The people spoke on the condition of anonymity to share internal discussions, with the exception of Jeff Rowe, who was always attacking Genera Peck for not having experience running a political campaign. So funny because Jeff Rowe's had experience too. He's had experience losing them. So which is worse, folks? Having experience running presidential campaigns that you lose, or not having experience running them and potentially running them a different way to maybe do something different and better. It's not Genera's fault. It's not her fault that DeSantis didn't take off. It's Jeff Rowe's fault that he misread the room, he misread the political landscape, and it's Ron DeSantis' fault and his wife's fault for believing Jeff Rowe and also misreading the landscape. He's a grown-ass man. I've said this a million times. I don't like it when some people get the unfair blame for stuff. I just don't like it. It is not her fault. But this you cannot do. Federal law prohibits coordination between presidential campaigns and outside groups. There is no known lawsuit or federal complaint alleging DeSantis' campaign broke the law. Not yet. And in the super PAC era that began with the Supreme Court's 2010 Citizens United decision, murky relationships between campaigns and allied groups, have become commonplace. Yeah, murky lines are commonplace. There's no doubt about it. But this is novel. The role we have seen Never Back Down take is novel. And look, I mean, I don't know anyone who would tell you that it's all right. Everyone deals with the murkiness, guys. Everyone deals with the blurred lines. But what they have been, the AP is doing like scratching the surface here. Loomer has photos. Loomer has timelines. She's got dates, and the media hates her. Otherwise, they could easily just go to Loomer Report and poach what she did. You may hate Laura Loomer, but she's 100% correct. Donors cannot sit down. Consultants and members of the campaign with consultants and members of the PAC and discuss strategy and coordinate. You cannot do that. Adolph Nadi, the legal director of the Campaign Legal Center, said that the reported communication between DeSantis' team and the super PAC goes, quote, too far. And I think it's Nodi, right? Nodi suggested the communications could draw the scrutiny from the Federal Election Commission, which is responsible for enforcing campaign finance laws, but has been gridlocked by internal divisions. Quote, to actually have a conversation with the candidates' agents and the super PAC's agents about strategy, there is no plausible argument that that is legal. This is not a gray area, unquote. That's what I'm trying to say. There has always been these lines that are blurred, especially in we never really defined certain things. So, campaigns certainly have walked up to the line. Come on, that's happened. And Democrats are getting pretty proficient in this. They hated Citizens United, but frankly, the fact is, third-party groups handle their get out the vote, especially in the post-COVID era. But they've never been caught talking to the DNC about it. They've never been caught talking directly to Joe Biden's campaign about it. They've never been caught directly talking to a governor's campaign about it, implementing strategy. This is a line even they would not, even if they do it, this is a line they would not want to be caught crossing. DeSantis' campaign has strongly denied the governor has tried to influence the network of outside groups supporting him, given the federal laws prohibiting coordination. Except, again, I would point to the Loomer Report where she takes from Facebook and Instagram conversations or posts that the donors, the wife of the couple, the comments and remarks that she makes it very clear that he does and did. And so does his wife. As for comment, just let me, before I get on with this, I'm telling you, any federal investigator is going to find that to be perfect evidence. As for comment, DeSantis spokesman Andrew Romero described the AP's reporting as, quote, more nonsense from unnamed sources with agendas, unquote. If it was the Trump campaign pushing this, if it was, they would have filed a complaint. There's no complaint yet, but there could be very easily. Nikki Haley could file it. Donald Trump could file it. A watchdog group could file it. A media report like this is bad news because then federal investigators take it and use it as evidence. I swear, this is how this works in this day and age. For better or worse, for right or wrong. They sometimes source the media reports and then use them to get warrants, to open up cases. Quote, while the media continues to obsess over attacking DeSantis with anonymous tabloid trash to support a false narrative, we remain focused on organizing in Iowa and sharing our vision for how to help the many Americans struggling this holiday season, Romero said. It's a good statement in response. It is. Never Back Down founder Ken Cuccinelli dismissed questions about DeSantis' political operation as insignificant in the overall campaign, saying, quote, Not a single voter gives a flying rat's tail about personal stuff. They do care about stuff like this. They do. We heard them talking about how they're tired of Never Back Down. Voters in Iowa are sick and tired of hearing from and about Never Back Down. That's just not true. However, I will say this. As some of you may or may not know, I've been doing, and it's going to be a long haul work. I've been doing some work, from my point of view, which is really just about math and statistics, about the justice system. I came across, because mostly it's about the federal justice system, but in an effort to try to find sometimes when you have a system this crooked, it's easier to look for exonerations of wrongfully convicted people than it is to search for wrongfully convicted people. There are so many wrongfully convicted people that it would take longer. So in order to get the full story, it's a better starting point to start with people who were. I came across Ken Cuccinelli as Attorney General in Virginia actually being on. It stunned me because he's such a conservative Attorney General. It stunned me to find him advocating in favor of someone who is wrongfully convicted. Stunned. Especially since back then when the state of Virginia made it very difficult to release people. The bar for proving they were wrongfully convicted was ridiculously high. There were people with DNA exonerations that still were having a difficult time being released. It's a catastrophe, because when they go to the original DA or SA in the case, that person really is not concerned about justice. They're concerned about getting their man. So even when there's evidence that exonerates the person they prosecuted, they don't want to be bothered. In any event, I was pleasantly surprised to find Ken Cuccinelli on the other side of that. But moving forward, we're going to be backing the governor all the way through this thing, Cuccinelli said in an interview at last Wednesday's GOP debate in Alabama. We're not going anywhere, and I fully expect to be right there for it, unquote. Cuccinelli, a former Virginia Attorney General, also made clear he was speaking on his own personal experience when asked directly if he felt any pressure from the DeSantises about the super PAC strategy. No, not to me. No. I don't play those games. I just don't play those games, he told the Associated Press. I've met the governor and I've encountered Casey at events, but I don't have those conversations. I don't know if I can think of an instance, even in other people's reporting, that the focus of this was Ken Cuccinelli. A lot of it was Jeff Rowe and others who are no longer there. It's, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look, but off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of any specific instances where Ken Cuccinelli was involved in this coordination. 5 Never Back Down senior officials have either been fired or quit in the past 2 weeks, including 2 chief executives, the chairman and communications director. The group has not explained the departures publicly. At the same time, DeSantis' Florida allies dwindling created a new super PAC Fight Right, which quickly earned the public blessing of the DeSantis campaign publicly. And they did this, seeded $1 million from Never Back Down, because Never Back Down is branded so badly now. DeSantis said he was unfamiliar with Never Back Down's ads last week when asked at an event in Cedar Rapids, an event sponsored by the Super PAC, which has hosted him on campaign stops across the state, and how well he thought they represent him. And again, this is another thing. There are laws. If Never Back Down is going to host events for Ron DeSantis, a certain percentage of them must be events that host other candidates as well. I don't know. I don't see them, to be honest with you. I don't watch a lot of TV, so I don't know. I can't really speak to that. Does anyone really believe that? And Laura's laughing. Come on. Anyone who knows the DeSantises, does anyone really believe that neither he or Casey have anything to say about Never Back Down's ads? I would rather you be a little bit more honest, even if it makes you look like you're on the line a little bit more, than just making a blanket denial statement that nobody believes. Kind of like how they made the blanket denial statement that, to refute my claim 8 months ago. that he in fact was running for president and in fact meeting with McCarthy donors and Paul Ryan allies and doing this. He said, I never met personally with McCarthy and DeSantis in a dark room. When a politician makes up something like this and it's just wholly unbelievable, they're lying. The Florida governor is relying on super PACs more than any other leading presidential candidate in the brief history of the outside groups, which exploded in importance after the landmark U.S. Supreme Court ruling in 2010. Again, we have never seen this. Never Back Down has spent nearly $43 million on paid advertising so far this year, according to the media tracking firm Ad Impact. By contrast, DeSantis' formal campaign, which he does legally control, has spent just $4.4 million. In Iowa alone, Never Back Down has spent more than $16 million on advertising. It's just they're talking about just advertising, people. They are not talking about the ballpark $100 million they're going to have flushed down the toilet when all this is over. That's more than any other political entity, campaign, or super PAC in Iowa. The group was airing several ads in November, some promoting DeSantis and others critical of Haley. Never Back Down remains responsible for many DeSantis' campaign stops and get out the vote efforts. DeSantis visited all of Iowa's 99 counties, a traditional gesture some candidates make before the caucuses to demonstrate their commitment to Iowa. Vivek will have done this twice over soon. Never Back Down hosted DeSantis at events in 92 of the counties he visited. They're getting into this now, according to the group's schedule. Super PACs can accept unlimited donations, while campaigns have strict limits. The big catch, groups like Never Back Down cannot legally coordinate with the formal campaigns on how to spend that money. And a candidate is barred from controlling a super PAC. And there are other rules too, and they're not really getting into this as deeply as they could or should. When it comes to these events, I think personally that's going to be the problem. That's going to be the hook that investigators are probably going to get them on, unless somebody calls them off. But as is the case with the most candidate-focused PACs in 24, those who lead outside groups are usually close to the candidate. And that's true all the time. Many of Never Back Down's original top staffers and officers, including many of those who left this month, did not have long-standing relationships with DeSantis. Late last week, Phil Cox, who managed his 2022 reelection, was named a senior advisor to the super PAC. DeSantis on Friday praised Never Back Down, which claims 26 paid staff in Iowa and says it has collected a written commitments from more than 30,000 Iowa Republicans to caucus for DeSantis next month. That's a significant figure for a contest in which the record number of participants was 186,000 in 2016. I think we could break that this year. I really do. I really think we could. The number of first-time caucus goers in our polling, in now even Seltzer's polling, and then also in Iowa State University polling is massive. It was about 40% in 2016 and then ended up being, I think, 42, 45? I'd have to go look it up. That's a lot. This time, it looks like it could be even more. And by the way, the polls understated first-time caucus goers in 2016. They tend to be younger, as Steve Kornacki pointed out the other day when he was going over their own poll, the Des Moines poll. But it's not just the case this time. They highlighted a 60-plus-year-old female who was caucusing for Trump, first-time caucus goer. And that 30,000 commitment number, I've been asked about this a lot on locals as well, and they keep touting that, and that's great. Here's the problem. There's a few problems with that argument. Number one is 30,000 out of, if we get to 180,000, is not that much. It's decent. It's a decent showing, but it's not that much. Number two, not all of them are. It's the nature of a caucus. A commitment means nothing. They could go into the caucus. Nikki Haley's group could argue that he has no path beyond Iowa and convince them, and they can change their mind. Trump's caucus captain could argue that Trump is going to romp it. Everybody knows it. Move on. Someone could have signed that commitment when they believed Donald Trump wasn't electable, because that was one of their early arguments. Now it's very clear that Donald Trump is more electable than Ron DeSantis. they could change their mind. And then third, and the biggest problem with this argument is that Donald Trump has more commitments. A lot more. He's been averaging nearly twice as many the entire time. Iowa caucuses traditionally reward well-organized campaigns. It's true. DeSantis' allies hope the months of effort will help them overcome expectations from polls suggesting Trump will dominate on January 15. Quote, I think the idea that they would be able to really focus on this organization. I think the idea was that they would really be able to focus on this organization, including in all 99 counties, DeSantis said on Iowa's PBS Iowa Press Friday. So I think it was very smart that they did that. Oh, we just read an article last week when there was all of this shuffling of the deck again within the pack. And the truth is, a lot of the money did not go to the organization. We hear about it all over Twitter from his supporters, from Kim Reynolds, from Bob Vanderplatz. Kim Reynolds is the one who was alleged to have had that organization. And I'm just telling you what I heard. I heard a lot of this money did not go to the organization as they said they would. That instead, they're trying to do what was described to me as what Charlie Crist tried to do with Obama's organization in his race against Rick Scott. In other words, borrow it. That doesn't tend to work out very well at all. So it wasn't built from the ground up. That's why the Reynolds endorsement to them was so important. She already has her own organization, and they were hoping to spend some money on other things and then, kind of build out from Reynolds' own organization. Many voters who gathered to see DeSantis at a crowded bar along Iowa's border with Nebraska late last week said they were not aware of the apparent turmoil. And those who said they weren't particularly concerned. That happens with every campaign. It's early. Shake-up with people are going to happen, 57-year-old Sally Madsen of Council Bluffs. Sally, that does happen with every campaign. There are usually shakeups. It's not uncommon. Corey Lewandowski there was a shakeup in 2016 with Trump's campaign. Corey Lewandowski took him through New Hampshire, and then he wound up looking for somebody who had more of delegate floor fight experience. So he hired Paul Manafort, which he was then used to try to boost the Russia collusion hoax. Truth be told, Laura, if the establishment never tried to rob Donald Trump of the nomination in 2016, Russia would never have happened. Paul Manafort was one of only 2 people on planet Earth alive who had experience with a floor fight at a convention. Floor fight for delegates. You've got to know the rules inside out. You've got to know the people. You've got to know how to make the calls. But this kind of shakeup that we're seeing constantly with DeSantis is not normal. I'm sorry. It's not. It's way over the top. Way too much. We're seeing a shakeup now every 2 to 6 weeks. And we have been seeing that since the summer. Since the filing. Madsen, who previously supported Trump, has already decided to caucus for DeSantis. She said Trump lost her support in the final year of his presidency on how he handled the COVID-19 pandemic and his failure to help who she described as, quote, innocent J6 rioters, many of whom have been convicted and some sent to prison. He didn't do anything for them, Madsen said of Trump. I don't know if he can even attract good people to work for him at this point, unquote. I mean, they just threw that in there at the last minute about a story about super PACs, folks. I mean, I don't know what that has to do with, but that's what they do to Donald Trump. So you have to just get used to seeing that. And again, I think they actually skipped over something that is very important, which is the event. Okay, you have got to have a certain amount of events that are headlined by other people. You can't just have your candidate that you're supporting headlined every single event. All right. You have to have a certain percentage, and we're not there yet. All right. So let's give everybody a little countdown here. 32 days, 12 hours, 21 minutes, and 56 seconds till the Iowa caucus. And then that'll be that. All right. So, at some point, yeah. And Yeah, it's Wednesday. If I have some time to answer some questions, we'll do that. But for now, I think I want to give, because it's already 12:40 and I got to take a commercial break. I think I want to give some people background on Michigan before we have our guest and talk about this latest polling, which is just unbelievable. And you would never know. If you just looked at the polling, you would never know about the turmoil in Michigan right now. But Congress, listen, in 2016, there are two people that I remember. One was a politician and a political figure from I don't want to call it, it can't be called a dynasty, but her husband was a congressman. And then, of course, she built a political career off of her dead husband. It's just true. And there was Michael Moore. Two people that I remember warning Democrats, starting, hitting the panic button and saying that not only can Donald Trump carry Michigan, Donald Trump's going to carry Michigan. You need to do something and do it fast. So it took my eye when I'm doing a segment on Michigan that somebody shared this on Locals, and I want to play it because it's her once again. And she notes for the interviewer on CNN, I told you this in 16, remember? It was me. I told you this. And she's on reacting to the poll from that news network. So let's roll it. Of course, I'm talking about Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, who is the wife of the late congressman, and then she took over his seat. Talk about nepotism at its finest, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But she knows Michigan, and she knows her area specifically. She knows Michigan is a complicated state. So when CNN breaks out a Trump plus 10, which I think is a little bit too bullish on Trump, I was concerned about our Trump plus 5. I have never had a presidential candidate with a larger than 3-point lead in the state of Michigan my entire career polling. Hillary Clinton once had a 3-point lead. I went back and looked. She once had a 3-point lead in the state of Michigan, and never after that did we see something like we're seeing now. And by the way, I even found the map. Let me show you guys real quick. Look what I found. It's it's gonna load up. There it is. There it is. Look at that, guys. Isn't this ancient history? Look at this. We were wrong about New Hampshire, though, but it was really close. 1 point. 1 point. What do you lose by? A few hundred votes or something? Come on. Michigan was still purple because of the nature of the state of Michigan. Same thing with Pennsylvania. In Wisconsin, we actually had, it was rounded 46-46, but Trump was up by 1. I don't know why, but high maps, unless you write a specific function, high maps will not do the 10th of a percentage point, which sucks. It automatically rounds. And I guess back then when we built this, or maybe there's been an update to the JavaScript, but back then it wasn't the case. But anyway, Michigan was Trump plus 1. It's just that, look, see, Trump plus 1, 48-47. It's just the nature of Michigan is so left-leaning, that it basically it kept it still in the battleground column. So the same thing goes with Pennsylvania, which was 0.6 Trump again. It's 48-48 when it's rounded. Iowa, Ohio, man, I blew that. Trump plus 3. And let's go to Iowa. Iowa was Trump plus 6. Man, I blew that, didn't I? And the rest of it, damn near dead on. Look at that. Trump 49-46. That's exactly what he won by. Clinton plus 5. That's exactly what you won by. Man, that was close. And then in Nevada, it was like dead even, and Clinton won it. But there you go. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. I just had to show that for posterity because all the BS that people like me hear on a daily basis, I had to show that for. I went back and wanted to look too, but again, never. It was in early October or late September. It was conducted in late September, released early October. Clinton had a 3-point lead that began to dwindle throughout the month of October as people decide. Really just came from older white working class who usually vote Democrat being the most undecided group, which was insane back then because, they were very Democratic. And then as they, especially the seniors, moved and decided and went slightly to Trump, he took a 1-point lead. So that's interesting, about how it went. But yeah, let's go ahead and play this, and then I'll come back and we'll show you the polls and everything.
New polls. We got a new poll out of your home state of Michigan that shows, Democrats 1 in 4 don't approve of President Biden. Young voters are breaking for Donald Trump, and there's not a lot of enthusiasm.
Look, the only thing I'm going to say about this poll didn't surprise me. And a year out, I warned, everybody knows I'm now the famous one that tried to warn everybody in 15 and 16 that we had a problem, and nobody listened. The thing I'm going to say about these polls, it's getting people's attention. We know what we have to do to go in and win this campaign. It's going to be hard fought, and Michigan's a very complicated state.
The whole reenactment of it, but what she confirmed there, what Debbie Dingell confirmed is number one, as my local supporter commented and remarked correctly. So the polling is real, because what she's saying is that Democrats' own polling is also showing Biden losing in the state of Michigan. So it's a problem, and she's setting off the panic button, the warning. So she's saying, you know what, though, the good thing is it is kicking everybody else into high gear. And before we move on to the stories here, let's just show you what Michigan looks like right now. As you know, we were Trump +5, just like the epic MRA poll. MRG, another poll that's very difficult for Donald Trump, has him up by 7. The New York Times, which had Biden, I believe, leading in Michigan by 11, has Trump up by 5. That's a 16-point swing, something like that, since 2020. Emerson is the only one who has Biden ahead still at 2. Bloomberg Morning Consult have it a tie, 43 up. And then CNN, the most recent of the polls conducted in from the end of November to December 6th, has Trump up by 10. Just to give you where we are real quick, just to give everybody a highlight. Where is all of this coming from? It's what I love about what we do. You can actually see, because we're going to be talking a lot about the Southeast in our interview. This is obviously the map. The big deal here, and the headline takeaway, was that Trump made such big gains in the southeastern part of Michigan since 2020. However, and this is going to be a theme you guys should remember as we get to our interview. Something I think we need to keep in mind is that other Republicans, local Republicans, Republicans who lost in 2022, there are many of them who have yet to come to grips with the fact that Donald Trump's support does not translate into their support. Simply because a voter set in Macomb County, Michigan, or hell, even Oakland now, say they're going to vote for Donald Trump, does not mean they're going to vote for the Republican for U.S. Senate or for the House in their district or for freaking dog catcher. Donald Trump support is Donald Trump support. A state like Michigan really, really shows that. The chair, Kristina Karamo, is going to join us in a bit to react to her critics. She's under heavy fire right now, and they're basically trying to get her ousted. They're trying to hold a vote to oust her. It's a full-blown mutiny at this point. She was supported by Donald Trump and had a very different vision for a broke Michigan Republican Party. The party chairs in counties like Oakland and Macomb, look, even some of them supported her, are acting as if the Michigan Republican Party was not in shambles before. You lost Macomb County with Tudor Dixon at the top of the ticket. You did not do well in Monroe for a Republican. You got absolutely blown out in Oakland County. Right now, Donald Trump is way over 60 in Monroe. And I don't mean like 2/3, but he's over 60 where he needs to be. He's in the mid to high, approaching 50, approaching close to 60 in Macomb County, and he's only down by 5 in Oakland. That's what makes a lead this big. You can't have a 4.7 percentage point lead in Michigan by just running up the margins in the Upper Peninsula. You cannot do it. Oakland has a huge number of votes. Second largest. You need to romp it in Macomb. You need to romp it in Monroe in order to basically cancel out your net loss in Oakland or come very close to it. And then the rest of the state you have to perform well enough in that you counter the 300,000 net vote drumming you're going to get out of Wayne and other Democratic areas that are in Michigan still, of course, that are an issue. You've got to do better in Saginaw than people like Mitt Romney and Tudor Dixon. You can't do that. Right? So the 3rd congressional district, there was a poll out the other day. Gibbs got creamed, 12 points. Trump and Biden are tied. This is the way you win the state of Michigan. And I want to say before I read this, I want to say that some of it, maybe it's founded, maybe it's not. But some of it really, to me, reads like a buck pass. You know? A buck pass. I have a lot of friends in the state of Michigan. One who is working on a project to basically circumvent all of the normal processes to register voters. And I don't mean it's totally, I'm talking about up on the up and up. He's basically trying to mimic what Democrats do. And he's been at this for a long time. When he put together this plan and talked about it with me, it was not even, I'm going to go and get money from the Michigan GOP, or I'm going to go do this, or I'm going to do that, because there never was money. And there are people acting as if like there was now or something. Like they were flush with cash before this woman took over, and that's all her fault. The Michigan GOP has been in shambles for a very long time. A very, very long time. All right, so let me just make sure nothing. I don't know why it keeps trying to sign me in and show you everybody in the world my information. But here we go. Let's read one from Michigan Live first. And these old flapping lips. I'm a lifelong Michigander. I'd like to hear your comments about this because I feel like maybe there is some valid criticism, but I really feel like she's getting blamed for failures that have been there a very, very long time. Very long time. Insiders that I talked to in prep for this interview are like, look, she's got a good heart. And I think everybody expected her like Moses to come in and part the Red Sea. And that was just not going to happen. Rona took off. After 16, which Trump won on his lonesome, can we get real? I mean, he had activists and stuff helping him, grassroots people helping him, but, Rona didn't, get out all those new voters. Rona didn't close all those, or flip all those counties that we went over on Inside the Rust Belt Revolution that I wrote 8 years ago. What was it now? Almost now. 5 years ago, 6 years ago. That's not what happened. So again, keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and read some of this. It's 12:52. There's another one I want to read as well, but let's get this one done before we have to take the break, okay? More pressure mounts to remove Michigan's once cheered GOP chair. Kristina Karamo is that in that picture right there. Ran for the Michigan GOP to embolden local Republicans, but as the state party's financial distress continues 10 months into her tenure, defenders are becoming detractors. Karamo, quote, is not capable of building the infrastructure that is needed, unquote, to ensure Republican victory in next year's presidential, U.S. Senate, and down ballot races, Oakland County GOP Chair Vance Patrick said Monday in a public statement. And I was going to read some of this when she gets on. I'd like to get a response to Vance Patrick because this is a county. I'm not even saying it's all his fault. I'm just saying Oakland County Republicans have presided over the biggest ass kicking across the state that you could get. And it's not just been in the era of Donald Trump. This has been going on for a long time. They blame Trump for a lot of their losses in educated areas like Oakland County, but this has been going on for years. And very clearly, it doesn't just apply to Trump and Trumpism. This is going on up and down the ballot. Local races are different and can be different, but the fact of the matter is, when we just polled the state of Michigan, Trump was actually doing much better in Oakland, and it's all done because of his track record. It's his name ID and his track record. It's not because of any groundwork that's being done. The rest of Republicans are struggling and badly. Oakland, a major suburban county of Detroit, is the state's second most populous, and Patrick, once a strong supporter, is the latest notable Republican to say they've seen enough. Quote, for the first time in modern history, the state party played no substantial role in getting out the vote for our candidates in the municipal election this past November, he said. Quote, our candidates and GOP organizations have been left to fend for themselves when it comes to voter data and canvassing tools. And I'm going to ask her specifically about that. But I can tell you this. You'll recognize the family if I said the last name. It's a very, very well-known family. And I asked if that was true. And he told me that maybe Oakland was getting special treatment or something. Because if you go to Ottawa or anywhere else, they were not. Patrick is the fact of the matter is they have to understand that they don't have the money. They're broke. Donors didn't even want to give to the party before she took over. Patrick urged the state GOP committee during a special meeting on December 27th to consider removing Karamo as chair to do so. Elected by a local Republican delegate in February, Karamo came into office as a populist reformer of a state party that grassroots activists felt was opaque, careless with its money, and did not represent conservative support for former President Donald Trump. Karamo, endorsed by Trump for Secretary of State in 22, a race she lost by more than 600,000 votes, which everyone did, has carried his proverbial banner high throughout her term. Like Trump, for example, she continues to falsely claim Michigan's elections are rife with result-changing widespread fraud. There you go. Anytime I hear something like this in a report, and I know the players who are criticizing her, and they don't go that far, and they don't recognize that stuff, they don't take that kind of action, I'll tell you what, folks, it bothers me. It makes me feel like maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be. The criticisms aren't all what they seem to be. I don't know. But on transparency and fiscal responsibility, the latter of which being especially crucial to winning back control of the legislature in 24, more and more Republicans have lost faith. Quote, our state party has been left in shambles with regard to fundraising and effective staff work, Patrick wrote, noting local parties alone can't pay for millions of mailers and hire extensive field staff to persuade voters. That was the case before. Laura, how many calls did we get from Michigan actors? This was the case. This party's been broke in this state for a while. Karamo did not respond to MLI's request for comment for this story. She has previously argued to party delegates that criticism of her is, quote, a deep state-like operation wanting their unchecked power back. Last week, MLive reported on a draft report from Michigan GOP insiders, that should raise your eyebrow, claiming the party, quote, is on the brink of bankruptcy under Karamo. Laura, this party was bankrupt before. Wait, Laura, this party was bankrupt before. Right. It blames her, quote, failed leadership. So I don't know, but like, hold on, pause. I know we got to go to a break in a second here. And I'm going to ask her this. I really wonder if some people supported her just so they could scapegoat her. So that later, when they say, oh, I was a former supporter, it sounds all very damning, doesn't it? There are some people that I can't help wonder because they knew how bad the situation was in Michigan for Republicans. They knew it. That's a good tequila, by the way. I can't help but to wonder whether or not they intentionally supported her just so they could have someone to blame. Like they knew the extent of these issues. Someone like, we are not going to put one of our people as the face of this mess. You know what I'm saying, Laura? Yeah, apparently. Yeah. This is what I'm saying. Like they're acting. There could be valid criticism in here somewhere, folks. I'm not going to be, that I'm not making an excuse. I'm just saying when, when claims are made like this, that we know are just so baldly unfair. Caroline Wren, by the way, she's a fundraiser, Republican fundraiser. I would actually, that's not even the right way to characterize her. She's an America First fundraiser. She was on War Room. I'm in the green room. And she had to take a trip out there, and she's going on and on about how impressed she was with how they did things and had their act together with such a lean operation, even though everyone knows they're broke. And that it used to be like extravaganza that, they really couldn't afford before. Another key GOP chair, Mark Fortin of the third most populous Macomb County, is also now a vocal Karamo critic after being a glowing endorser when she took office. And by the way, either Mr. Fortin or Mr. Patrick are most welcome to come on here and speak their piece as well. But I see areas that underperformed. I see people criticizing from areas that grossly underperformed in 2020, had no resources before, have had some major problems without Donald Trump on the ballot, criticizing. That's what I see. It's a lot easier to blame someone else. Maybe I'm wrong, and you're more than welcome, Mr. Fortin, to come on and tell me I am. I'm not even rendering a judgment because I don't really, the truth is, I know what I know, but I don't feel like I know enough to tell the viewers exactly what's going on. I could just tell you what people tell me. And I can tell you what I knew before. So, and I can also draw from like years and years of experience of having other people put their on someone else. And that's what I'm wondering is the case here. We're going to find out, though. And then also, too, what we're going to talk about is there are a lot of people, because I got to go to a break. There are a lot of people who are confused about how this process is going to work this year. When Michigan moved, and Nevada as well, by the way. And I want to start clearing up the air because we got our nomination schedule map up, our delegate map up. Yeah, this is the problem. This is the problem. They didn't like her to begin with, flapping lips. That's what I'm talking about. They didn't like her to begin with. We had Drew Bourne on to talk about this process when they were selecting the chair. He even ran himself. But he is one of very few who said, okay, Karamo won. Her heart's in the right place. I'm going to get behind her. Everybody else was mad. Big mad. Right, Laura? Big mad. And now here we are. Come on. This smells. This smells to me. It does. I'm sorry. Especially when you just did not perform well at all. It's easy to blame someone else when your own house is not in order. It is. Facts on facts, folks. Facts on facts. As my kids would say, this criticism sounds sus to me, folks. That sounds very sus to me. I like that one. So yeah, we'll try to clear up too while we're at it. Not only all of this, but Michigan is weird. You're going to have a presidential primary vote, which is more like it's almost like a beauty contest. It's a hybrid system. And then you're going to have what is like a caucus kind of convention kind of thing. And it's different. So I'm going to read to you its rules. We'll try to clear it up when we come back from the break. And then when we have on the chair, she can offer some clarification as well. But between Michigan and the Silver State, between the Wolverine State and the Silver State, we have a lot of people saying, what in the hell is going on here? But let's take a break, come back, and when we do, we'll talk more about that and talk about why everyone is making such a big deal over some of these changes. All right. But for now, recent clusters of respiratory illnesses in northern China and now outbreaks of what's being referred to as white lung syndrome in the United States are littered across headlines right now, shining on the need to be prepared for unexpected medical emergencies. With almost 90% of pharmaceuticals in the U.S. being produced outside of the U.S., will you have what your family needs when the next crisis hits? Like we saw with COVID, countries clamp down on exports and stockpiles during these crises, causing the price of drugs to rise and pharmacy shelves in America to empty. This is already starting to happen. And not only that, will your doctor even agree to prescribe you ivermectin or a Z-Pak when you need it? You guys have heard me talk about this before, but I'm bringing it to you again today. The Wellness Company's Medical Emergency Kit. This kit includes 8 life-saving meds like amoxicillin, a Z-Pak, ivermectin, to help keep you and your family safe in the face of natural disasters, supply chain shortages, and medical emergencies like white lung or COVID. It also includes a guidebook for safe use, like your own personal physician to consult in your pocket. In a time when over 40% of Americans say they would avoid a doctor or a hospital unless it was a catastrophic situation, the Wellness Company's Medical Emergency Kit provides a solution. Go to twc.health/TPP and grab your medical emergency kit right now. That's twc.health/TPP. The TPP will save you 10% at checkout. And TWC is committed to supporting individuals through unforeseen challenges. It's founded by doctors like Dr. Peter McCullough. It provides a solution to almost any unexpected disaster, from skin infections to pneumonia to COVID. Relevance to pharmacy shelves in America going bare. 90% of drugs are produced overseas, folks. 90%. That's crazy. It's such a shame that we didn't take the COVID pandemic as an opportunity to change how things are done. And by the way, a second Trump term, that was going to happen. Unfortunately, for people who are in need of something like that, it didn't. But Dr. Peter McCullough and other doctors are giving us a solution here. All right. There's been a mysterious outbreak of pneumonia in Ohio. Be prepared for the unexpected. Go to twc.health/TPP. Use that code TPP for the People's Pundit and save yourself 10% at checkout. All right. I mean, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer, right? Am I right or am I right? That's for your family's health. And then it's also Christmas season for your family's gifts, or even a gift for you. That's right. The People's Pundit is advocating you treat yourself for once, like I do when I go to Jam and Bean. Love Jam and Bean. Whether you love freshly roasted beans that you like to grind yourself and brew yourself fresh, beautiful, right out of the bag. The Penitent Man, by the way, is delicious. Or you sometimes, like me, just don't have the time and you got to throw a K-cup in. You got to throw a K-pot in. This is the only full-bodied medium roast K-cup, period, full stop, end of story. And they just happen to be, like I said, Michigan-owned and based COVID Patriots. Jamandbean.com. Use the promo code TPP40 on any new subscription. Get 40% off right off the rip. Plus, when it renews, you're still going to get 10% off. Look at those gift boxes. Look at those gift boxes. Under $30. You can't do better. Subscribe, jamandbean.com. Use the promo code TPP40 and get yourself that savings on that new subscription. The gourmet popcorn is over the moon. Over the moon. Right, Laura? Just over the moon. I do like myself some bougie popcorn. All right? I'm going to admit it. I like myself some bougie. Right, Laura? Let's be honest. But this is actually affordable. Butter, rum. Oh, anytime you get something with butter in it from them, because all of the ingredients are natural. Anytime you get something like buttered rum or even the caramel popcorn, which I'm not a huge fan of. I don't like the sweet stuff with popcorn. It leaves this aftertaste of like
I do.
rich. Go ahead, Laura. You probably.
Oh, the caramel popcorn. Yum. I love it. And
But
it
that
has
is
a buttery, like a
Mhm.
caramel buttery
Mhm.
flavor afterwards,
So
almost reminiscent of like, I don't know, like a butterscotch aftertaste. And it just makes you eat more. It's kind of bad but good in a good bad kind of way.
yeah, yeah.
But my
No,
favorite is the white cheddar popcorn. I love that white cheddar.
yeah. I absolutely
And the
love the
syrup.
white. Oh my god, the white cheddar is so good. I forgot about that one. I also like the sour cream and chives. I like that a
Oh,
lot.
that one's good too.
Oh yeah, that's so good.
That's
They're
really
all,
good though. Those two are my addicting ones.
and even like our son showed us the blueberry vanilla. I'm not
Yeah,
a
the
fan
blueberry
of stuff
vanilla
like
one,
that.
that was tasty too, and it was you see,
And that's what I'm
I
saying.
just love that it's so different and it's unique, and then it's all natural flavor, so it's not like you're getting some
Did you eat one you
chemical.
haven't liked yet? That's what I'm saying. Like the blueberry vanilla, I did not think I was going to like, but I did.
No,
Is there
I
one
mean,
like you like dislike? I haven't found a
I've
single one
never
that I
not liked one,
disliked.
but, you always have your favorites, so.
Yeah, you rank them.
Mhm.
And then the one with the apple, it was green apple and popcorn, which balanced. And then you were like, you know what you should do? You make an apple pie kind of thing. Then they did it.
I love them for it.
Oh my God, it's so good.
And then
So
that
good.
syrup with the cinnamon stick in it,
Oh, and
yeah,
it's Michigan.
yeah.
Michigan.
I'm telling you, good stuff. Sorry, guys. We really obviously enjoy it if you can't tell.
Hold on. I got to tell. Hold on. After the show, let me just listen. I do want to take some time. We should have David on Friday to talk about. There's just so much going on with the race for California 20. And of course, I'm, just full disclosure, I am not a member of the campaign. I haven't polled for David. He's a friend. There's no doubt. Everything that's going on in that race is disgusting, and they're doing everything in their right mind or everything in their power, and they're out of their minds trying to stop David Giglio from winning Kevin McCarthy's seat in California 20. Folks, I would put nothing past them at this point. David just announced a lawsuit because, of course, what Vince Fong is doing. Vince Fong last week said, I prayed to God and God told me I should not run for Kevin's seat. Then Shannon Grove, who is Kevin's protege, decided she's not running against David. She's not doing that. Shannon and David were friends. They got along. But she is Kevin's little mentee kind of thing. Anyway, she took a pass on it. And then they went back to Vince. And they have others, by the way, on the bench. The problem is you can't run for two offices at the same time in California. And Vince is an assemblyman who was already qualified, and the deadline is passed. He is on the ballot as the assembly Republican candidate for that assembly district. And they know they're breaking the law. So David announced this morning he's going to sue. And he should sue. You can't have any credibility or crying about lawfare if you don't abide by the law your damn selves. Right? This is the problem with Republican Party. They're hypocrites.
Hate separate rules for one and then the other.
And why do they hate David so much? Let's talk about why they hate him so much. Number one, he didn't wait his turn like they told him to. They tried to offer him district seats, assembly district seats, Senate seats to go away. He wouldn't. He's like, listen, I'm not doing this for a political career. I'm doing this to try to save the country and to support the America First agenda because I am really American first. America first. They threw millions at him to stop him in California 13 last time. The districts changed. John Duarte won by a few hundred votes. He's gone through 10 staffers. They hate his guts. They all say he's going to lose. He yelled at them the other day, just go find me the damn votes. And they're mad because David won't help him get the Hispanic support that he needs in Merced, which David built up on his own. What does David owe them? David was cruising to win that nomination. And they jumped in at the last minute with millions of dollars, stuck a big donor in there who is a fraud. And there's some good people around, by the way, Donald Trump, who told him that that guy is America first. He's more conservative than he seems. You got duped.
But let's talk
He's
about
a
before that. They didn't stick just one guy. They kept doing
Oh
this.
my God. Yeah, you're right. He was Duarte was the last because he had money. And that was like the last of it because Diego didn't work. What's her name didn't work. She had run before Melissa. She didn't work. David just kept pulling them over these people, and they didn't have the money to put behind them to drum David down. They had the money, and Duarte could raise on his own a lot, and he raised $500,000. He loaned himself, him and his family loaned himself $500,000, which got him on Young Guns, by the way, even though that's against the rules. You're not supposed to self-fund yourself on a Young Guns, but they do it whenever Kevin likes somebody. And now he's going to lose, and everybody knows he's going to lose. And it's somehow David's fault. They're mad about that. Then they want to steal 50 or 60 delegates from Donald Trump when they move the primary day, and David gets in the way of that. So their little plan didn't happen. They hate his guts over that. Now he literally runs a business, lives in Clovis. His business is in Clovis. Do you know how many times David's business has been broken into and the police just don't do anything? They can't. I think he's up to like 4 break-ins. This is Kevin McCarthy's district. And because he wouldn't get behind DeSantis, they all planned, McClintock's people, they all planned the DeSantis little coup. And he was like, no, I'm sorry. I'm a loyal Trump supporter. See Rick Grinnell's tweet? He's like, hard pass, no more fake MAGA in this movement. That's what he said when Vince Vaughn put out his statement. And by the way, you better watch out when it comes to lawsuits, because text messages that say things like, F the judge, F the law, they could end up in front of the judge. They knew what they were doing. And I know for a fact, I just can't burn anybody, but I know for a fact they knew that he's not eligible to run. And the Secretary of State says, these are extraordinary circumstances. We're going to have to review this. That, in other words, Kevin picked up the phone and said, break the law for me. That's what happened. Why? Why? Ask yourself why they were willing to go through all of this to stop this guy. Because he is America first. And they are not. Because they weren't confused with the delegate rules, folks. They didn't need the People's Pundit to explain it to them. They needed the People's Pundit to embarrass them and catch them in a lie. So don't send me text messages asking me while I'm making you look bad. Because you're lying to people. Because your boss, the chairwoman of the California Republican Party, hates Donald Trump's guts. And she can introduce him when he comes to Anaheim and gives a speech. And she can turn her little chameleon skin on and pretend to be MAGA. But we know the truth. And that's fine if you're not MAGA. I'm not advocating one way or the other. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm advocating for one thing. Be honest with the voters. Tell them who you are. John Duarte did not run as a pro-amnesty, pro-abortion, anti-Second Amendment, anti-border security rhino. He ran pretending he had Trump's endorsement, pretending to be a conservative, calling himself a, quote, conservative fighter who takes on the deep state and will shut the border. Look at him now. He's voted for every bit of Ukraine spending he could vote for. He wants, and why is he doing it? To get IOUs so he can get an amnesty, so he can help his family business. Get cheap labor. He was lying, and that's fine. If that's what you agree, if that's who you are, what I am advocating is run on the things that you're really going to do. Rush Limbaugh was right, man, about why they hate Trump so damn much. He was right about it. Because this stuff it's like a problem when the president of your party doesn't do that. And you do. And you make these promises, 5-year promises, 10-year promises, 15-year promises, secure the border, overturn Roe v. Wade, drill in Anwar, stop endless wars, repeal and replace Obamacare. And you are totally full of shit. Let's check out the delegate map. All right. So now the lawsuit has come back. We need to have that segment because I'm watching over here, Laura, and I'm stewing. You got to get David on Friday. See if he can come on Friday and talk about this. Because this is really bothering me. The identity crisis the Republican Party is having is a demon of their own design. Michigan should not be rhino country. They can't win an election as a Republican, as a rhino Republican, to save their lives. You're never going to win Macomb County as a rhino. Somebody please tell me the home of the Reagan Democrat. What county was that again? Right? That's how long that ancestral voting pattern's been going on. How did Donald Trump carry it? We modeled it for locals just a few months ago. Macomb was still majority Democrat influence. Still. California has no hope as a rhino party. No hope. They're not appealing to black voters. They're not appealing to Hispanic voters. They're not appealing to young voters. Trump is. How many more episodes do we have to do? This is not a matter of my opinion, the People's Pundit's opinion. This is a matter of fact. Established by the math, by the empirical data. They have no future. Yet the solution for California Republicans is just be Democrat light, play nice with Democrats, and, maybe they'll throw us some crumbs on the floor. While they sit at the table, while they sit at the big boy and girls table, slobbering on their real meal, their 4-course meals, we'll be able to lick the crumbs off the floor like a bunch of dogs. That's their strategy. Nevada still is closed. There was a lawsuit. The party under the former Democratic Party, changed the rules from caucus to primary. The state must hold a primary. However, the state law does not, because they can't, require by law how the party, what contest the party uses to nominate or to allocate delegates to presidential nominees and candidates. All right. So it was a caucus before. Some people said the party was fighting tooth and nail to keep it a caucus because the party is run by Donald Trump in that state and they're favorable to Donald Trump in that state, and they were trying to rig it for Donald Trump. Here's the kicker. I personally would have preferred them go to a primary. It's easier and it increases participation, which kind of debunks that criticism. If you increase participation in a more diverse, non-white, younger state, you're going to help Donald Trump. A caucus is going to see less Hispanic participation. A caucus is going to see less black voter participation, especially a Republican one. Especially a Republican when you're trying to reach out, to these new voters and extend, enlarge your tent. A caucus is going to see fewer younger voters. That's why first-time caucus goers tend to be younger. It's not just, the age thing. It's participation. It's a different deal. A caucus is a different animal. You don't go to the booth. You don't pull the thing and then leave. It's a commitment. It's an event. You spend hours at a caucus. Had they opened it up to a primary system, I think Donald Trump would have performed even better in that state because you're going to see younger people, you're going to see more Hispanics, and Hispanics, especially those who lean to the right in that state, love Donald Trump. He romped Marco Rubio among Hispanics even back in 2016. Do you not remember that? He crushed Marco Rubio there. Mostly in Clark County, too. In any event, Nikki Haley took a gamble and decided that she is going to register to be on the primary ballot. She can get some good press out of it. She's almost assured to come in first. Why? Because you know who else is on? Mike Pence. Other candidates are not. Other candidates who are serious candidates are not on the ballot for the primary in that state. They are on the caucus ballot. Nikki Haley took a gamble, and she is essentially not on the ballot. Not essentially, she's not on the ballot. Which is why the Morning Consult poll that just came out showed the Nevada caucus a little bit weird. I don't know if they know or not, but she's not going to participate there. So there will be both, and they will allocate those delegates based on the result of the caucus. That is what the Republican Party has decided to do, and state law can only influence, and we're going to talk about this more when it comes to Michigan, it can only influence, like if they move the date, then you have to abide. Why? Because the state is moving the date, and there's nothing you can do about that. And then the Republican Party, based on the date, has their own rules. That's what happened in California. They moved the primary up to Super Tuesday in California, and that is what the fight was about. If it's before March 15th, it has to be proportional. That's not true. You can have core proportional allocation rules with winner-take-all thresholds and with minimum thresholds, just like South Carolina. All but 2 states on Super Tuesday are winner-take-most with winner-take-all provisions. All right, so which brings us to Michigan. It looks like there was some technical difficulty there, Laura, but I saw it. Which brings us to the state of Michigan. It's a winner-take-most. It's an open primary, unlike Nevada, still closed. Open means you cannot participate unless you are declared. Now, Michigan does not have party registration the way that Florida has voter registration by party, right? So, and a lot of Midwest states, like Wisconsin, by the way, Minnesota, they do not as well. Virginia, right? So if it's closed, how would you know, right? It's open means anyone could participate in the contest in Virginia. Now, bear with me because I'm going to read one and then I'm going to read another. All right. On the, and I thought I changed that date to February. Okay. Does it say February 22nd on that map? Yeah, it does. Okay. Tuesday, February 22nd. And there are 55 delegates up for grabs. All right. There will be a primary. It is not quite like Pennsylvania, but it is different. 16 delegates, 10 of which being at large, meaning statewide. 3 bonus delegates and 3 RNC delegates, which are, for instance, like the Michigan GOP chair is a delegate. Okay. 16 of the 55, including what I just mentioned, are bound to the result of the presidential preference primary. The delegates are selected from a list of party members that are provided by the campaign of the winning presidential candidate. Delegates are allocated proportionally like this. You see the equation there? I'm trying to give it They are allocated proportionally to candidates who meet a 12.5% threshold. As you can see from the polling, let me just make sure what the other CNN had theirs, but there's a Republican. As of today, according to CNN, only Trump, DeSantis, and Haley would even qualify. PPP, Democratic polling firm, only has Trump and DeSantis qualifying. We have only Trump qualifying. So, because we had Trump at 61.4, DeSantis at 11, Haley at 8.7. CNN is a little bit there. They have PPP is closer to us than anyone else. They have 63 for Trump, 13 for DeSantis, 6 for Haley, but that was before the so-called Haley surge. I didn't see Haley's huge surge in the Rust Belt. One state she did come in second. I believe that was Pennsylvania. All right. So if you meet the 12.5% threshold, this is how it's done. The delegates equal 16 times the votes for the candidate, qualifying candidate. You have to be a qualifying candidate. All right. And that is divided by the total votes, rounded down to the whole number. Any unallocated delegates are rewarded to the highest vote getter. All right. So the leaderboard. Then there on March 2nd, presumably, I believe it is March 2nd, there will be the congressional district caucus. So you have the at-large splits, a hybrid system. You have the at-large delegates being allocated based on the primary, and then you have the remaining delegates, 3 per congressional district, being allocated based on the caucus. All right. So just give me a thumbs up, Laura, when you're, ready. Yeah, I am. Just give me, bing me or text me or something. But I know that's a little bit different than some of these other states. It is up to the candidate to provide that primary. Let's talk about the primary first here. It's up to the candidate that's running to provide the members of that list of party members, the delegates that are selected from the list of party members. That's up to the candidate to do. It's not like Pennsylvania where it's a full-blown beauty contest where you're actually voting for delegates. Like, so if you're the Trump campaign across the state for the congressional, three delegates for the congressional delegates, whatever, you're going to provide your slate of candidates, and that's called a beauty contest in slang kind of thing. But everybody knows who those delegates are anyway. This is different. All right. So, yeah, I mean, it's because the primary or the contest itself was changed. Michigan chose to handle it different than the Silver State did. Again, if I was the Silver State, I just would have made it a primary. I really would have. It's, they're going to do it the caucus way. And what some of these other campaigns, if like you're Nikki Haley, you're not going to win the caucus. So what she did was take a gamble that she's going to be on the primary ballot and then get some favorable coverage off of it. It's a very, very risky thing. In Michigan, you're just going to have to compete, and that's all there is to it. All right. So, yeah, I think we're good to go, right? All right. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to bring on my guest so she knows better. Look, I have to clarify these rules with people like her anyway. So let me just bring her on and then she will know. And I have a ton of things I want to talk to her about anyway. But welcome inside the numbers, Michigan GOP Party Chair, Kristina. How you doing? Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate this.
I am great. Thank you, Rich, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Now, I tried to do my best to explain to people how the contest was going to go. You have anything you want to add to it? I get between Nevada and Michigan, probably the two states where I get the most questions for how these contest rules have changed, things have changed. And, if you have any way you want to clear it up, that'd be great.
Yeah, to your point, as you stated, because the Michigan legislature, which is controlled by Democrats, they moved the primary up to February 27th. It put us in conflict with RNC rules. And so what happens is the RNC has a certain window of time as to which rules for the presidential convention, the 2024 convention, presidential primary, can be modified. And so we were clearly outside of that window of time where they could modify rules to accommodate our situation. Yeah. And with us being in conflict of the RNC rules, Michigan would have lost a significant amount of our delegates. We would have lost well over 50%. 60-70% of our delegates. So that would have disenfranchised Michigan Republicans altogether because we wouldn't have been a competitive state. So we were able to come up with a solution with the RNC where 16 or the at-large delegates will be awarded based on the February 27th primary, and then the March 2nd convention, the congressional district conventions, the other 39 delegates will be awarded 3 per congressional district.
Yeah, so that there you go. I mean, it is a little bit different, but it's not that, unless you're a political junkie like me, it's not that hard once you realize the rules, once you get it. But yeah, the states can put state parties in, the state legislatures can put state parties in a weird position, a tough spot when they move dates or when they make changes that they have to still comply with the party's rules. So it's going to be interesting to see over there. I know you were busy last night. You're all over the state. I want to give you a chance to answer some of this. I did a little bit of a segment before. You're taking criticism here from both sides. You have people, and it's been 10 months, a little over 10 months since you took over that job. I know a lot of people in Michigan, Chairwoman. The party was in a lot of trouble before you got there, and I just wanted to give you a chance to respond to some of the people. You have Vance Patrick, the chair in Oakland, and of course Macomb too jumped on ship. I wanted to give you a chance to respond to some of the criticisms they're leveling at you, because my audience knows, maybe a lot, maybe many don't. My audience knows the problems Michigan's been suffering for a long time, and I wanted to get your take on what you think is going on there, and just give you a chance to respond to what they're saying.
We're course correcting. And, as you mentioned, the Michigan Republican Party has been in trouble for decades. We've lost 3 election cycles in a row. The Democrats have gained ground. Even when we had control of both the House and the Senate, we have spineless Republicans, which we call rhinos, who just let the Democrats just have their way and really did nothing to stop them. The only thing they were able to protect was right to work, but that was it. But beyond that, they let them rig the elections. They let Gretchen Whitmer lock us down. We had a Republican at the time during 2020 when we had control of the Michigan House. We had Republicans who wanted to draw up articles of impeachment against Gretchen Whitmer, and then quickly the at that time Speaker, shut him down. No, we're not doing this. And then come to find out later, this guy was heavily compromised due to some illicit acts in his personal life. So this is what the Michigan Republican Party has been dealing with for decades. So we are taking a new approach, and we are course correcting. We're not playing the same old games. And you have individuals, some of the individuals have their own personal agenda. Some of the individuals don't like the changes we're making because, one of the particular individuals, this individual sent a letter around to executive committee members. An attorney sent a letter around threatening executive committee members, demanding that they turn over personal communication. An attorney sent a letter around in Oakland County to executive committee members demanding they turn over personal communication, personal messages where he felt that they were criticizing him. So that individual is clearly a tyrant. And so we are working to restructure the party to give rights back to delegates. So you have some county chairs who are tyrants who don't like the concept of delegates having more power. One of the things that we're working on drafting is a state party constitution. That way we can return power as close to the local level as humanly possible, which is the precinct delegate, not the county chairs. And you have some who are upset. They don't like that because they can't be tyrants anymore to the delegates and executive committee members. And we had one county chair send letters to delegates telling them they're not delegates anymore, which is completely illegal. They can't do this. And then when the delegates try to organize to fight back, this county chair and their few minions are going to draft rules, draft new bylaws where they want to fine people hundreds of thousands of dollars if they organize without their permission. This is the type of abuse some of our precinct delegates have been dealing with from county chairs. And as state party chair, I have a duty to not I can't allow people to abuse people. Our delegates don't have time for that. And then this expectation that delegates should have to go to court and sue their counties to just be treated decently and to be able to exercise their rights that their neighborhoods elected them to do. Because remember, precinct delegates are elected officials. They're elected by their neighbors. So you have these county chairs who want to abuse the delegates. And then when we try to give rights to the delegates and fix the situation, the county chairs want to whine about it because they want to be petty kings. Now, that's some of it. And then other parts of the criticism is that, there's so many people who profited from the failed system in Michigan.
Yeah.
They personally benefited from it. They made millions of dollars and just moved millions of dollars through the party. In like last cycle, they claim they spent $18 million. And most of us are like, on what? We didn't see commercials. We didn't see billboards. We didn't see flyers. We saw nothing. What did you spend $18 million on? So of course, when you have somebody like me who comes in and says, we're going to fix all of this, you're going to meet tons of opposition because there was like the Democrat party. It means like our party were like co-conspirators with Democrats to just oppress the people of Michigan and not do anything meaningful. And so we had a facade of an organization. So we're restructuring. It's literally a new organization. So we're restructuring a new organization Then you have, petty kings over there, and you have the old guard who wants their operation back. Then and the Democrats over there just laughing. You have the people of Michigan scared. The thing is sad, but what we're doing is we're focused on moving forward. We are course correcting. We are undeterred because we have a country to save. And we are just doing our absolute darndest to organize at the ground level. We win this nation back city by city. It's not going to come from a top-down approach because the top is so sick. It's so corrupt in our state capitals. It's going to go precinct by precinct, training each individual as much as humanly possible on how our government works and how to engage in our government. So, Rich, when I ran, I was a Republican nominee for Secretary of State.
Yeah.
And when I was in campaigning in Flint, Michigan, and one of the things we're doing differently, for some bizarre reason in Michigan, the Republican Party would not go into Democrat areas. Like Wayne County, that's the largest county in the state. And they just thought it was just a ridiculous notion to go campaign in the largest county in the state. That we do things differently. So I was campaigning in Flint, which isn't Wayne, but it's a very Democrat city. I was talking to a woman who was concerned about how some of the dollars were spent during the Flint water crisis. And the woman shared with me that they were concerned that money was being mismanaged. And I asked her, I said, do you know what a FOIA request is? And she told me no. And in that moment, Rich, I realized that the average citizen has absolutely no idea how to engage their government. They don't have the slightest idea. They just know to be mad. And that is a recipe for disaster. So what we are doing at the Michigan Republican Party level, which of course is going to make a lot of the political class very angry, is we are working to train citizens on how to be independent political operatives as much as humanly possible. So we want citizens to know how to go to a city meeting, a county meeting, how to FOIA documents, what questions to ask, what to look for. That way they're not dependent on the party. That way if the next party chair turns to be a tyrant or a horrible person, these citizens are still prepared and know how to engage your local community to have better political representation, because that is our goal. We are trying to redirect. Sorry.
I'm wondering if some of these people who say they supported you before and don't now, I'm wondering, like, did they not know some of the stuff that you were going to do? Because one of the complaints that we got, you brought up that a lot of people made money off of this. One of the complaints that we got was that the voter data, and to me and Laura, immediately the bells go off. It's like, that's a complaint that your friend who's a vendor didn't get hired to do this or that or the other thing. It's like a certain consultant that always had access to this job or that job didn't get it this time. Did they, the calls I made saying, did the Michigan party, state party, give you these services before to run these local races? Out in Ottawa, they were like, what? No. I don't know if Oakland did, and they had some special treatment. Did some of these people just not know what they were going to get? I mean, I'm trying to wonder where these, where this disconnect is coming from.
Well, again, it's different from person to person. Why some people are mad against, as you mentioned, some people were vendors. Some people just, a lot of people want to control you, and they have their own agenda. It's not one solid answer. It varies because, again, politics is such a brutal game. That's why the average citizen doesn't want to get involved. My background is education, and I have a master's in Christian apologetics. I went to theology school. So I did not have like political aspirations or political goals. I just was a pissed off citizen who had it. That's it. That is my reason for being here. And various people get upset for a variety of reasons. You won't do this if they like. It's not an issue of violating campaign promises, violating the party platform, violating the Constitution, violating the law, violating morality. These are not the claims. These are not the claims that she's breaking the law or she's violating this or she's not being a Republican. None of these are the claims. The claims are personal, or they want something that I won't get them, and it's all personal, or they have an agenda, or it's people who want the operation back. We have to, as Republicans, I think we have to realize that we have enemies behind the wire who've been sabotaging our party for years. There have been many of us who've tried to bring a renaissance, not a revolution. We don't want a revolution. We've been trying to emerge a righteous renaissance within the Republican Party, and there are efforts to suppress us at every step of the way. We are constitutionalists, and that is what we're focused on. We're not focused on the will and the deal and the favors, and none of that. That's not how this administration operates. And anybody who's been in politics know that it's the industry of favors, where people give each other favors. And I'm not about that. I'm about competent people who are ethical, who are moral, who are rooted in the Constitution, who are rooted in Judeo-Christian morality. And then we are going to get to work. And the people with all their nonsense and their distractions, we're just not entertaining that. So of course these people are mad. And it was so sad is it's all about themselves. So, I can't, I try to work with people, but again, if you notice, all this comes from personal crap. It's not a legitimate complaints because they're not helping. They're not about moving the party forward. So, and then we just keep going forward. We have a country to save, and we're working on organizing people at the local level, plus fighting to make sure that our elections are secure. Because we know they're going to try to rig the election. We're not going to try.
They hate that you say that too, though. I mean, Chairwoman, let's be honest. They hate that you say that in every single article that's attacking you and trying to prop up your detractors. Every single article mentions that. They don't believe the election in Michigan was flawed. She does. That to me, it's like, that's not really the topic of your article. I don't know why they have to level that and throw it in there, but it always, again, a bit of a red flag. And you have a lot of people, if you look in the comment sections, you look in some of the Facebook posts that the media have cited, average people coming to your defense. And I got to ask you this one specific thing, because there was a bunch of people who were defending you over it, and it maybe was characteristic of what's going on here. So they allege you want to sell this headquarter building, okay, because the party hasn't had the money for it, right? So what is going on with that? Because some people are really mad. It seems like some symbols of stature maybe are not what you prioritize. I don't know. I'm trying to understand their point of view. Like, if you're trying to get the party leaner, do its job better, we know the party in the state party has had financial issues long before you came along. And after 2020, donors told me I'm never giving to that party again, 2 years before you came on board. So this has been something that's been going on forever. If you can find somewhere that you don't need, or you don't find to have any value anymore to help right the ship, why wouldn't you do that? So they seem very angry with that. Can you tell me what is going on with this headquarter?
Yeah, to your point. Yeah, these people preach fiscal responsibility until it's time to practice it. I mean, look at it. We have Republicans who are raising your taxes just like Democrats. I mean, it was so shameful in Michigan that the Marxist Gretchen Whitmer is the one who repealed the retirement tax that Rick Snyder, the Republican governor, put in place. So this just shows you the type of Republicans we've been dealing with. These people they're jokes. I'm sorry to say it like that, but they are. So to your point, this building is something we don't need. This is not the 1980s. We were told that that we were gonna,
I'm just laughing. I'm sorry. It's not the 1980s. Go ahead.
Yeah, we were told that by the former administration that we were going to have to pay $12,000 a month to use a building. And we thought that the party owned, and that was what it was going to cost us. And I thought that was absurd. I was able to find an office downtown Lansing for $3,400 a month. That's a quarter of the price. I'm not going to continue to waste money. The former administration left us over $600,000 in debt. They defaulted on a line of credit. The former administration, the former chair, is a billionaire, and by the way, is a board member of the Atlantic Council. Just putting that out there, which is cited in that the House Judiciary Report. The Atlantic Council was involved in suppression, dissension regarding the 2020 election. So just put that little nugget in your mind. But that building, we don't need it. It's huge, and we don't need it. And right now, to your point, the Republican parties have no credibility because they continue to act like controlled opposition. I mean, look how we fought tooth and nail. Like, I know Mike Johnson, I'm sure he's a great guy, but we wanted Jim Jordan to be Speaker of the House. And we had Republicans. I mean, in Michigan, we had a congressman who just refused to vote for him, even though the rest of us were like, what is wrong with you? This is what we want. And so the Democrats, one of the reasons why they do better in fundraising, because they do what the base wants.
Yeah,
they keep their campaign promises. They do what their people ask. So yes, they're going to volunteer. Yes, they're going to donate. But then the Republican elected officials, they talk a good game of conservatives. They have the top button of their shirt open and the sleeves rolled up and talk a game of conservatism. And then when it's time to actually act like conservative, they always reason their way to an action. So people are angry. So why would they give the party money? And that's the thing a lot of these clowns don't understand. You guys make my job hard because we're trying to course correct. reroute our party in the Constitution. And then you guys constantly reason your way to not doing what the constituency wants. So why are they going to give the party money? They're not going to. So again, one of the things, but we do require lots of funds. So this building is an opportunity for us to settle a debt that we did not incur. We did not incur this debt. And so, and we had other issues going on in the lawsuit where there was an entity we are concerned are doing business in the name of the Michigan Republican Party. So there's lots going on to that as well. But the point is that across America, you see many populists being elected to state chairs. And the same thing is happening whether you see Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, Arizona, Georgia. You see this happening across America, where you see populists being elected as state party chairs. And the old guard, the neocons, don't like it. They want 2000s politics. This is 2023. We are America first. That's just the facts.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. That you would never know from all the headlines and everybody attacking you right now. You would never know to go to the Real Clear Politics Average and see that the former president has a lead in that state. That George Bush never led in Michigan by these numbers in the polls. And he didn't carry it, but I'm saying, or the second Bush, I mean, the CNN poll, has the former president up by 10. We had him up by almost 5, just about 5 rounded. So did Epic MRA, which had Biden up by 6 in their final poll. So, a lot of Republican voters feel that every time the party is on the brink of doing something, special, making gains, that the donor, whether it's the donor class or the establishment figures, you just sabotage it. So you would never know from the headlines how Michigan has shifted to Trump, and you would just think that would be something that a lot of them would be talking about, this opportunity. In our poll, I think it was non-2020 voters, people who didn't register. They leaned Republican by like 20 points. In CNN, it was 40 points. Like, these people should be focused on registering those people and getting them out to vote in Michigan. In 22, it was a very disappointing performance, and I get that, but you move on. And Michigan has a wealth of, that unlikely and non-registered voter population that Republicans could go after. And that's not, I think voters get frustrated on our show that that's not their focus. They're too busy attacking their own.
Yeah, to your point, and you have a variety. There's a group of people we call me firsters. Some of them who may share our conservative values, but they have just selfish ambitions and motives that's what guides them. So that's why I get criticized, or people will say, well, we can't contact her and things. It's like, because a lot of you want drama. I don't want drama. I want to save our country. We have 10 months. I don't have time to stroke your ego and rub your feet because you're mad. Like, we have a country to save. We don't have time. Our kids are going to inherit tyranny. That should concern everyone. And I sometimes feel like, Rich, that in the Republican Party, we have adopted a culture of losing, where the only thing we know how to do is fight each other. That's all that a lot of people know how to do. They don't know, because some of these people, it's like, you don't know the first thing about campaign. What have you done to take it to the Democrats? Where have you laid it on the line to take it to these Marxists? And many people talking, they have not. All they do is argue amongst themselves. And so, since I don't want to indulge the foolishness, they get upset. So I'm moving forward, because, to your point, and I say this to people all the time, the average Michigander could care less about these petty kings wanting to argue. What they care about is, I want to make sure my kids are free. I can't afford to buy a gallon of milk. And so what we're doing with our Good Neighbor program is working to train Michiganders on how to go and actually be a part of the solution. Because what has happened is we have rested on the laurels of our founding fathers, that we're just going to have this wonderful country. It doesn't work like that. It requires maintenance. It requires maintenance, because if you think about it, many of these people, now some of the people criticize me, I just think that they have their own agenda, but some of these people are actual controlled opposition. One of the things I learned, Rich, when campaigning for Secretary of State, when I spent a lot of time in Northern Michigan, and they had issues of Democrats running for office as Republicans because they knew they couldn't win any other way.
Yep.
And so many of these people are actually enemies of the other side, who are come behind our wire and are sabotaging our efforts. And really, when you think about it, for the enemy, that's brilliant. What is the best way to stop my enemy, infiltrate their operations, create chaos, and sabotage it.
Yeah, we
Because
dealt with that in Pennsylvania quite a bit too. And the way that some of this, especially local elections, it's almost impossible to tell them apart. They know, I mean, the political people, the activists know who is really, running as a Republican, but as a Democrat, but the voter doesn't. It takes a lot to get them, to convince them to do that. But we have that in our state as well. In our area, there are a lot of people who are just patently Democrats, but they run as Republicans because it's a Trump plus 30 area. They can't win any other way. And I think a lot of Republican voters are surprised, even when it comes down to whether it's offices, actual elected offices who administer elections, county clerks, supervisor of elections, and they're volunteers. It could be a deeply, deeply red area. I think a lot of voters were surprised to find out, even in areas like that, they're Democrats counting the votes. There are Democrats doing this. They're at the deeds office. They're at the whatever it may be. They're the tax collector. And they may run as a Republican, but they are not. And I think that anytime someone comes around like you is going to get in the way of that vendor to consultant to vendor to party chair relationship, that's going to be a problem. They're going to be mad at that. Everyone, my friend Don and I, you always have an expression. Everyone knows a guy. It's like, who's going to do this? I know a guy, right? And that's how they live. That's how they make their money. So when you try to reform, you run afoul of them. They get pissed. I mean, there's just that's how they've always done things. They don't know any better. They don't know anything different. And right before you came on to the point that you made, a lot of these people, Republicans, self-declared Republicans, are happy to eat the crumbs that fall off the table from Democrats as long as they get those relationships are preserved and their financial situation is preserved or whatever it may be. They're okay. They're all right, laying at the floor like dogs would, eating the crumbs off the floor. And the voter is tired of it. And Democrats, to your point, they don't have that voter donor disconnect, that Republicans do. The voters think very different than the establishment does. They're not really the same, and that's hard when to reconcile. It just can't last forever like that. You can't expect that dynamic to last forever without turmoil, without pain from change. And that's, I think, what a lot of us are seeing now. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on. And I said, I told your critics you'd be happy to come on. You want to hear your case. No response so far. But yeah, anything you want to tell people before we go? Oh, Laura's over here yelling
check
at
out our
my ear.
website.
I don't know why.
Yeah, migop.org, migop.org, especially if you live in Michigan. Sign up for the Good Neighbor Program. Get involved. To your point, our goal is to train the citizenry on how to engage us. We cannot just continue to sit back and expect other people to save our country. We have to do it ourselves. And that comes from us knowing just how our government works and knowing the mechanics of how government works and how to insert ourselves in the mechanics of government so we can have better political representation.
Well, I think you answered it. That's what she was in my ear about. There were people asking in the chats and, how they could, get involved with that Good Neighbor Program, so how does it work? And you just answered it. Looking forward to the primary. You got any, you got any insight into what it's like out there? I mean, we know what the polls say, but you got any insight, from the ground, what you think?
Well, I will say, I have to preface my comment with this. Per our party bylaws, I'm not allowed to endorse it.
How's the energy? Let me ask you that.
Yeah, so yeah, people are very excited.
It looks like it from the polling. It does.
The populists are definitely in charge here in Michigan. So that's the direction Michigan is definitely going to go in. It looks like Mr. President Trump probably is going to do very well in our primary election based on what we have seen. But again, I can't endorse. So we'll have to see on March 2nd. What occurs, and we'll see. But it's going to be an exciting convention, and we're going to have our March 2nd convention in Detroit. So that is going to be new for us as a party. And then that's the former TCF Center. That's so we're going to actually have our convention there because part of our belief is we're going to campaign this whole state because there are so many people who have never been involved in the Republican Party who are ready to vote Republicans. You've seen out of Chicago how people are up in arms about illegal
Just
immigration.
going to bring that up.
Yeah, they're up in arms about illegal immigration. So now they're seeing that us being falsely accused of being bigots is bogus. It's completely bogus. So now we want people to vote Republican, not based on emotion, but based on policy. Because if they're voting Republican based on policy and issues, they're going to be lifelong Republican voters and activists. So we have a great opportunity to bring people to vote Republican based on policy and actually better political representation.
Just from a numbers point of view, first time participation was very high when we polled it. We just polled it recently. We don't usually see numbers like that. People saying, no, I want to participate in the nomination process for the first time. And then also that good for you to bring that to Wayne, because that urban and rural divide is trying to close. It really is. And we hear it all the time. The people in urban areas want to see Republicans. They want to hear something else. And you brought up Chicago. We just got an earful the other day about that. We want to see people out here. We want them to come out and give, we'll put an event on for them. We'll show up, just come. And so you're doing something different. And that's good. I applaud you for it. I really appreciate you coming on. Come on back when you can. And looking forward to it.
Thank you, Rich. God bless.
God bless. All the best. Well, that was Michigan Republican Party Chairwoman Kristina Karamo. I'll tell you what, I was watching the chat. I don't know if you can pop in here, Laura, but I was watching the chat. People they liked a lot of what you had to say. She did. And when you bring something like that, there she still is. When you bring something to the table like that, you're going to bother people, Laura. What you know what I mean?
She's amazing. She's an amazing woman.
Liked her.
She's educated. She's informed. She knows what she's talking about, and I love the no nonsense attitude. And she's dangerous to them.
Can I just say something? Because you just said, I guarantee you, if somebody looks into that headquarter building loan, somebody's going to be hurt from them dumping that loan. So she was under the impression that they own that building, right? And $16,000 a month. She was under the impression they owned that building. Come to find out, and starts with a C. Somebody was actually in the audience who knew it. A certain bank it starts with a C. The name of the bank. I'm not from that area, so I'm not sure. I did forget to ask about Caviezel, but that's all right. The name of the bank. Commercial bank, maybe something like that. That's a loan, basically, or yeah. I mean, it's essentially they are paying the bank. That's somebody's account, and I bet you anything, somebody, if you looked into it, Laura, someone from the bank, as a cousin, like I said, I know a guy. I always know a guy, and that would be someone's loan that they're upsetting. Plus, these old-fashioned traditional Rhino class Republicans, they like their stature, so she's coming into this and saying, like every pollster, every vendor, COVID comes, everyone gets out of the office. You know how many of our own vendors, Comerica, that's it. I think that's the bank. Judo Joe Black. I think that's actually it. It is, right? It's it. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. When COVID happened, all of these big voter file vendors, all of these big, I don't even want to say consultants, but, campaign related vendor businesses never went back to their offices, Laura. Like, I don't want to say the one, but one we've been working with for years, one of the biggest ones in the country, never reopened their DC office. They all figured out this one works remotely in Atlanta anyway. This one works remote here. They just decided paying that much a month was overhead they did not need. And they brought it into the 20th century. They had some problems doing that, but ultimately some of the hierarchy, the older folks, especially, and I don't mean that by age. I mean, entrenched people, boys club people, once they realized the savings in money, they buckled and gave in, but they met resistance doing that. Right. So the doors in DC never reopened, and it's all digital now. And she's like, look, I found this for this much a month. This is not 1980. And that's a problem for a lot of people who are they're animals, or I don't want to say slaves to it, but they kind of are. They're just slaves to the old way of doing these things. And Democrats on the other side, their state parties, their national DNC, they have at this
Traditionalists,
point,
maybe.
they have just no big assets like that.
Mhm.
All these other groups, are grassroots. They're not wasting money on that stuff. And I feel like I'm trying to take the critics. Of course, I'm taking them seriously. I'd be happy to have them on so they can air their grievances as well, Laura, and then we can talk about it. But you're not going to tell me, because I got a text while she was talking in response to somebody, one of the critics. I didn't have a chance to respond. You're not going to tell me she's the source of financial problems in the Michigan Republican Party. That's not a valid criticism. It's not. That party has been broke forever. Donors, we got the calls after 2020. Pissed off. I'm never giving these people again. They couldn't. What did they do? It was 2 points. 2 points. What did they do with all my money? They were mad. So don't tell me that because that's what I got. Oh, why don't you ask her about the money, this, the money, that, and not raising the money? I know the donors didn't want to give to the party anymore in Michigan. I know they didn't. You and I heard from them, Laura. So don't tell
Yes,
me
she
she's the
inherited
reason.
a very bad situation.
Oh
And
my God.
just because you inherit something, that doesn't make you the problem. But it's something that everybody likes to do. It's like, let's nominate this person, and then evacuate.
I feel like a lot of that's going on. That's what I was saying before, Jay. I feel like a lot of that's going on. There's no talk about the CNN Trump plus 10. There's no talk about him leading on the average right now by 5 points or something in Michigan. What the hell is he leading by in Michigan? I have to go back and look. There's no talk about that. So obviously, there's opportunity there. There's a reason for them to try to sell. He's up by 4.1 in the RCP average. There's reason to celebrate that. Instead, it's this. And, this is, I just don't even know what to tell. I don't know what to say. You find something specific, that you think, then you bring it up and you say, look, I don't like how this was handled or that was handled. But so far, 3 different people who've been involved with county level committees told me they don't get help the way that that's being characterized for local elections. That never happens. So they don't know about that criticism. And then everyone, we had Drew Bourne, who ran for her job. We had him on. He's a great guy. Folks, go back and look at the episode. He was very critical of prior leadership. It's broke. The coffers are empty. The donors don't want to give. It's a dire situation. So don't tell me that she came in and made 1 or 2 bad financial decisions, and now that they're on the brink of bankruptcy. Come on, that to me is nuts. I'm sorry, especially since I know, I know the situation they were in. I think maybe you had a lot of people living off of borrowed time and breathe oxygen. And, Rona jumped out of there as quick as she could after 16, basically took credit for something that wasn't really done and it was still in shambles. But Trump covered up the disastrous state of things because he's a turnout machine. You know what I'm saying? And it made them look like they got something for their money. But then the minute he's not on that ballot, it all falls apart and they need someone to blame. Come on. All right,
I just want to mention that I also think this is a bigger problem. I'm looking and listening and watching Kristina, and I see her as a threat to the GOP.
Yeah.
And they're afraid of that. And she can do so much more with that mentality, the way her no nonsense kind of talk.
Yeah.
I see her doing good things, and they're petrified. So they're trying to destroy her in any which way and form now.
Yeah, this is the thing too. On locals, DMCF said, but you have people like the old guard that are more behind people like Mike Rogers and stuff, and then they withhold the money. They intentionally don't donate, so then they can say, "Look, the America First chairwoman failed." You know what I mean? Like that's what they do. And then they got this guy in Kent being sourced in every single article. I know he hates Trump. I know for a fact he can't stand Donald Trump. So am I supposed to take it? Am I supposed to just totally ignore that when I'm weighing the criticism that he's leveling? Come on. I mean, we've seen them do this. We've seen them do it in different ways and many times for candidates, for committee chairs. They can withhold the money and then blame you for not raising money. You know what I mean? And that's how they hold. That's their grift, Laura. That's the heart of their grift. And then when they do finally release it, it goes to consultants and whatnot, and everyone that they just happen to know. It's a total grift, and that's why nothing changes. All right, so the consensus in the chat is that she passed the BS detector. She passed their BS detectors. That's what Jonathan wrote, but everyone's like agreeing with him. She passed the BS detector. So yeah, I mean, they like being losers as long as they get the crumbs off the floor. I'm telling you. All right. So, yeah, it's 2:08. I'm going to have to kick rocks, but thank you to our special guest for coming on, the chairwoman of the Republican Party. I really appreciate her taking time to do that. She's really busy. I mean, Kristina Karamo is running all over this last night out in Western Michigan, excuse me, doing the business. And again, I just can't help but to recall somebody had told me something. They went there to go speak, and it was a fiscally conscious event, yet everything was, despite it being such a I don't want to say shoestring, but again, fiscally conscious is a good way to put it. It was still well run and very different than what they have seen in the past, and that very much goes with what I heard Caroline telling Bannon. So it is what it is. Again, Christine's the first one to be the state party chairwoman while her presidential candidate is polling 10 points ahead of a Democrat. I've never seen that before. Have you? Yeah. So there you go. Focus more on the good, maybe. Iron out the crap that didn't work before. Maybe you'd be better off. All right.
And don't forget to join Richard on Human Events with Jack Posobiec at 2:35.
That's what I was going to say. I'm going to kick rocks. Don't forget Human Events with Jack. I'll see you guys on Friday. We'll talk more about the Christmas poll before we launch it this week this weekend into next week. And we will see you guys on Friday. Actually, see you before then. Deuces. Kicking rocks.